Rodwell's translation of the Quran, he wrote notes that the presence of contradictory and inaccurate statements, for example, Muhammad is nowhere found in the Bible, but the Quran claims that Muhammad himself is described in the Torah and the Gospel. No, he's not. There is not one mention of Muhammad in the Bible. The disciples of Christ were obviously Christians, but the Quran teaches that the disciples of Christ were Muslims. The Muslims didn't even exist in Christ's time. The Muslims didn't show up until Muhammad, some 600 years after Christ's death. He started doing his dark, weird preaching and everything, and spreading his Islam religion in sometime in like 600 some AD. That was some 600 years after Christ's death. See, it says here, 600 years before Muhammad was born, Christ's disciples allegedly claim, "We believe and bear thou witness that we are Muslims." Where did they say that? There's no mention of them saying that anywhere in the Bible. It's just a bunch of garbage. There wasn't no such thing as Muslims then. The Quran also teaches that Abraham was not a Jew, but a Muslim. And again, he wasn't really a Jew, because he wasn't a Jew in truth, neither a Christian. There weren't no such thing as Christians back then. But he was a Muslim. No, that's not true. See, there's no, Abraham in truth was not a Jew, either a Christian, but he was a Muslim. But listen to this: the Jews consider Abraham a Jew. The Christians consider Abraham a Jew. Jesus himself considered Abraham a Jew. All the world considers Abraham a Jew except the Quran. Abraham was a Jew. And it says here that he was not a Jew but a Muslim. How can they say he was a Muslim? There was no such thing as Muslims back then. There was no such thing as Christians back then. There was the children of Israel, and at that time with Abraham, there was no children of Israel either. He was the father of the Jews. He's the father of the Jews. There are also some rather unlikely events in the Quran. For example, after Allah tempts the people into sin and judgment for their evil, when they had scornfully persisted in what they had been forbidden, we changed them into detested apes. What? According to history, the army of the king of Ethiopia, Abraha, halted its attack on Mecca due to a smallpox outbreak. But Surah 105 teaches that he was defeated by birds that dropped stones of baked clay on the soldiers. That sounds stupid. Turn them into apes? Some of you read, I know some of you would look at that and say, there's a bunch of crazy stuff in the Bible too about a man walking on the water and a man curing leprosy and walking on the water, and then the Red Sea, the Red Sea, walking on the Red Sea and parting the Red Sea and all those kind of miracles and bringing fire out of heaven. Well, those are more, but turning somebody into apes, a bunch of birds flying around dropping stones on you, that really makes sense. That's just stupid. Those other ones are miracles, about biblical miracles, but these are just stupid. Finally, the Quran has many biblical distortions. Almost every biblical episode discussed in the Quran has additional or contrary information supplied. The names and events of Old Testament books and prophets are very definitely copied in the Quran. However, often the stories in the Quran are garbled and confused. For example, in Surah 2, 56, 57, and 61, the Jews returned to Egypt after the Exodus, which biblically and historically was never the case. They never went back to Egypt. Now there were several times where they were in distress in the wilderness and lost their faith and started complaining, I wish we had died in Egypt, I wish we were back in Egypt, but they never went to Egypt and complained, and murmured to God and complained, and God judged them, on occasion back during that time, but they never went back to Egypt. They kept going and wandering in the wilderness for 40 years and then went to the Promised Land and conquered Canaan. They never went back to Egypt. In Surah 341, it is stated that Zechariah would be speechless for 3 days. He was speechless for the entire pregnancy of John the Baptist. which is about 9 months. He was speechless all that time. He was speechless for 3 days, which is taught in Luke 1:18-20. In Surah 12:11-20, the Quranic story of Joseph is markedly different from the biblical story of Genesis 37. The accounts are so contrary as to demand one be in error. In Surah 2:241, Muhammad confuses the persons of Saul and Gideon. There are also variations in Surah 12:21-32 and 36-55 when compared to Genesis 37-45. Where there is descriptions of the creation of man, the fall, Moses, and the burning bush, Noah and the ark, Joseph going into Egypt, or the lives of Zechariah, John the Baptist, Mary, and Jesus, or other biblical characters, the Quran often contradicts biblical teaching. Yet the Quran also explicitly claims to confirm the book of Moses and the Gospel. So if the Bible is historically accurate, then it is the Quran that must be in error. Oh yeah, you say that to a Muslim, they get mad. They don't like that. How dare you, bad man? How dare you blaspheme God and ridicule our beloved book? Your beloved book is contradictory. Now, the next one I'm going to go into is I'm going to see if the Quran itself has contradictory teachings. Basically, does the Quran contradict itself? We were just going over some where it contradicts the Bible, where the Bible has one thing to say, but then the Quran messes it up and has something different to say. Next, I'm going to go into if the Quran contradicts itself. Oh, I know, that scares you. Somebody will say, you actually got something that says it does? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And by the way, I'm just going to tell you, the Quran does contradict itself.